Hi, this is Professor Tom Wolf, and this is a short presentation on debugging while we're developing JavaScript web apps. I thought I'd just create this short video to show some of these tips. Most of this is actually using the tools that are provided by the web browsers. So we'll look at Firefox and Chrome, which is what I usually use. I think most of this material I already have kind of strewn through all the videos I do, because I usually develop. When I have a problem, I leave it in the video and I show you how I solve it. But recently a conversation with my friend Dorothy, who's learning web programming, kind of inspired me to put this short video together just to show some of the techniques. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so we're in NetBeans. This is a craps program that I wrote previously. It's actually already been debugged and set up, and I've deliberately made a small mistake in it to show you some of the techniques. So I'm in the NetBeans environment here. It doesn't really matter what editor you use, but before you even start to debug your script, you want to make sure that your HTML markup is valid. And if you're using an editor like NetBeans or Adobe Dreamweaver, you're going to be okay, because those browsers will validate your code for you. So because I don't have any red ink here, there shouldn't be any problem with this. And if you don't have a development environment like that, then you can go to the W3 schools and validate your page there. So for instance, if I just go to Chrome and go ahead and open a new window here, and I'll say W3C validator comes up, probably because I've used it before. So we have, and we want the HTML validator, not the CSS. You can validate your CSS as well. Usually if your CSS is a problem, it's going to be the page will run, it just won't it won't have the display correctly. So the JS code, though, if you have an error in it, then often it doesn't do anything. And that's what I'm going to show you, is how to use some tools. It'll give you some feedback so you can figure out what's going on. So I can go ahead and give the URL if my page is on a web server. I can upload the file if I want to do that. Or I can copy the file directly into this box, and then I just hit the check button and it gives me a report. This is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to go through this. You can do this on your own. If you don't have valid HTML, that might be the problem, and that's a very difficult thing to detect otherwise. So you want to make sure before you even start playing with your JavaScript code that your HTML markup is valid. The reason for that is when we do, and it's called DOM programming, Document Object Model. And what happens is the web browser creates a sort of interface, which is a model of the document, and it's object oriented. And if the markup is bad, then the model won't be correct, and then you can't program with it. Okay? Alright, I'm going to close this. Let's go back into NetBeans. And so now I've set my NetBeans up to run this. Now, again, it works best if you're doing it with an IDE, but if you're not, you can still flip back and forth between your editor and the web browser. And once I get the developer tools open, I don't want to restart the browser, I just want to refresh it each time. So let's look at Chrome here, and I'll launch the page, and you'll see that it's going to fail. And that's a little note saying that I have the connector plugin for Chrome. And let's see what's going on here. So what's going on here is that the game is, part of it is working, but the display of the messages is not working. Okay, so this is a craps game. I actually have a video where I developed this, and you can look at that. So something's not working. I'm not seeing the messages. So I'm going to go over here and open the Chrome Developer Tools. and I think we want more tools. There's a bunch of stuff in here. I don't necessarily know how everything works, okay? So you can use developer tools or the JavaScript console. Let's go with the console today. And so you can see that I have some messages here. And I don't know if you can see this or not in the video. I actually have a lot of trouble reading this color because I'm slightly colorblind. But we have some tabs across here. And the tab that's called console is the one you want. So if we see here, I've got a bunch of JavaScript messages to the console. Cannot set property inner HTML of null. Okay? So, and it gives me the line number too. So if I come over here, it'll actually go to the source. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, and I'll just go with the first number there. So message text.inner HTML of let's see. Whoops. Sorry about that. It's so quick that I want to get that message back up there. Wow, it's really touchy. I'm having trouble. Alright, well, basically what's going on is that message text is null. And so I'm trying to set that. Now there's a couple of things I can do. I could come over here and look at the watch expressions. Hopefully you know what that is. That's where you put a variable name in and it shows you. And I'm guessing that these are here. I don't remember working on this, so I don't remember putting them in. Okay, but anyhow, you can see that I've got these errors marked here in the source code. And so now I need to figure out what's going on. Wish I could get that message to show a little bit better there. Let's see. Oh well. Okay, so actually I know what the problem is here because I did it deliberately. So it's telling me in the console, let's go back, uncaught type error, cannot set property inner HTML of null. So when I looked at this, the inner HTML is message text, so message text is null. So right off, this is a pretty common error, and I can guess that it has something to do with my... Oh, and here in NetBeans we have the errors too. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's go ahead and close this. So if I come down here to... sorry, I have to open my JavaScript. I had the HTML open there. There we go. So about line 44, I think our error was... So here it is. The global variable message text is not declared. I know that's not the problem. There it is right there. So look at this. Document.getElementById message text. And that's camel case, which is the way I always write the code. You should do that. But here, I actually changed the code, and so it didn't work. Okay? So if we change this back, save it, and then we can go back. Now here's the deal. If I run this, it'll reopen a new window in the browser. I don't really want to do that because I have the debugger open already. So instead, I'll come back here and then just refresh the browser. And that's this up here. So we'll just refresh that. And now you see I'm getting all of the output for craps. So what happened was the getElementById handle that I used for this message area had the wrong name in it. Okay, and I could tell that that was by null. Alright, let's go ahead and put that back again, and I'll show you another technique you can use here. Alright, so let me go back into NetBeans. And I'm going to change the message text again. And in my JS, let's suppose that for some reason I just can't figure that out, what's going on there. So I know that something's going on here. So what I can do is I can say console .log and then message Oops, having some trouble today. Message text equals space plus and then msg txt. Okay, so that's my variable. So what I'm doing now is I'm just printing the variable out. You could also use a window alert to do this, but if you do the console log, the program will continue to run. So either way is a technique, and the advantage of the window alert is it'll halt the program at that point, and you can see what's going on. So let's go back to our browser again, and remember I can keep running this, but if I do then I have to open the tools and all that all over. So instead I'll just keep moving back to the browser and I'll reload the page each time. Okay? Alright, so now if I go to my console, let's run the program here. That's weird, I didn't get the output here. Oh, you know what? I think I forgot to save the file, so I'm looking at the old version of the file. That's one problem with this technique, is you got to remember to save. So Control S in NetBeans, back here, reload the page, and now you can see there's my message. So I'm in the console. Message text equals object HTML5 span element. Now none of that makes any difference except for the fact that it's there. So if it said null, then I knew that the get element by ID wasn't working. Now in point of fact, span element is good information for me. If I go back over here, you can see that in fact span ID message text, let's save that again. So now I fixed it so it's broken again, and again I'll reload it, and now it says message text equals null. So a couple of things going on here. You got to get in the habit of saving the page every time, especially if you're leaving the browser window open like this. Excuse me. In NetBeans, when I run the program, it saves it for me. But the problem with that is it reopens the browser window each time, and then I have to go through the problem here of opening the developer tools and all that. Okay? So again, I can use this console.log to test my program. And let's see, we've got a new one. Uncaught type error, cannot set property, enter HTML of null, which is the same error we saw before. Okay? Now one of the reasons that I showed you this error is it's pretty common. You can see that it's easy to just get the ID misspelled, which I did here deliberately. And one way to prevent that is to get good coding habits. So I always use camel case for everything that I have an ID for, and then I don't have to guess about how I spelt something when I write the code. Okay? Alright, so far so good. Alright, let's go ahead and take another look at our JS here. And just a quick review. This was designed to show the preloading of images. So what we have here is we have an images array. We're going to go through 5 images that are have an index of 0 to 5, 6 images, sorry. And we're going to create a new image object and then assign the source, and basically these are all called image let's see, what the hell is that? Image plus 1 plus PNG. Oh right, so image is the index, so these are numbered starting at 1. So image 0 is going to be 1 dot PNG, okay? And I think you can see these over here, so 1 through 6. So there's just a little offset there that image plus 1 shifts the name, okay? Alright, so we create the images, we preload them. Often once I'm done with something like this, I'll just go ahead and comment it out, and then it's there if I need to re-enable it. I don't have to write it again. Okay, here we're getting a random die, and we're going to use that value to show the 2 images. So that's right here. And then Notice this, document get element by ID rule button on click equals function. So this is the function that the button the button runs when it's pushed, okay? And that starts the craps game. So we go through, we get the 2 die rolls, we set the images, we go ahead and get the actual die value. Again, that's just to shift the index up, since the die is 1 to 6 and not 0 to 5, like the index of the array. And then this is basically just the rules of craps. So if you get a 2, 3, or 12, you get craps and you lose right away on the first roll. If you get a 7 or 11, that's called a natural and you win on the first roll. Otherwise, you get a point and then you start rolling for the point. So again, I went through all this in the other video where I developed this, so you don't have to worry about it so much. But you can see how it's working through here. So I'm going to show you how to single step through this in the web browser next. Okay, so let's make sure it's working now. We'll reload it. Hopefully I remember to save everything. Yes, okay, so that's working. And notice I don't have the console log message anymore because I commented it out. So now let's go to the JavaScript code. Let's see, I have a lot of trouble reading this. Okay, I think we want sources. Yes, there we go. And I'm also going to expand this up a little bit here. So I want to keep the rule on the page so I can launch it. And then I'm going to go and click on my JavaScript file. And so then you can put breakpoints in here. Now, I'm assuming that you learned in programming how to use a debugger. So basically we can do breakpoints and we can pause the execution. We can step over the next function call. We can step into the next function call. We can step out of the current function. We can deactivate our breakpoints, and we can pause on exceptions. We can also add variables to watch. And what happens is if you have a variable here and it's in scope, it will show the value. So let's go ahead and add the die1 dex to this. Okay, so die1 dex. I'm going to hit enter. And right now it's out of range. It's not available. So you won't see much from these until you actually run the code. So let's go ahead and set a breakpoint here. I don't think you can set a breakpoint on a comment. I think you have to set it on a code. Okay? So let's go ahead and click on line 42. There's a breakpoint there. And now when I reload the code, and then I'll click roll, and notice it stops at my breakpoint. If I come over here, I can see that the die1 index is 2. Alright, now if I really wanted to see that, let's suppose for instance I was concerned about the range of the die1 dex. Like maybe I thought I got my code wrong for randomizing the value and it was out of range. In that case, what I'd probably do is use the console log, and it would print that every time in the loop, and then I could look at my console and see all the values. So here I just wanted to show you how to view a breakpoint. Okay, a watch variable. Alright, so now if we want to single step through this, if you do that, it will just run the script. Okay, so let's go ahead and click the step over, and so it begins to go through the code. And you can see that I'm repeatedly hitting that, and it's running the code. And then if I just click here to discontinue, it'll run the code until it hits the point. Okay, in this case the game ended before we did that. So when I hit roll again, it hits the breakpoint. So that's how you single step through the code. Now honestly, I don't do that very often. I usually can understand the logic of the code well enough that what I'm looking for are simple errors. So like a syntax error, if the IDE didn't catch that, the console will display that message. If if I have one of those things that I just showed you, it'll show me that it's null. So that's very useful. Okay, just click again to undo the breakpoint, and you can just run this. Okay, I hope that was real useful. Now let's just real quickly show how to do the same thing in Firefox. Generally I use Chrome. Sometimes I have to kind of peck around to find stuff in Firefox. So let me go ahead, and now I'm going to tell NetBeans that I want to use Firefox for the debugging. I'll go ahead and launch this, and it'll just open Firefox for me. I don't have a Firefox window open. Here's the game. Let's hit the roll. Everything's working. And then if I go up here, you can see the developer stuff. And so we'll click on that. Oh, excuse me. Got a little frog in my throat there. I think some coffee will take care of that. Let's see. Okay, so again, I don't use this one as much. There's a bunch of different tools here, and they're really useful. One of the most useful ones is called Firebug, and this is an extension that you have to install in Firefox, and I've already done that. Let's just open that, and we'll see if that's going to be useful, because it's very similar to what we just saw in Chrome. So you can see here I have the console and a bunch of different settings. I can look at all this stuff. I can look at our script. So there's the JS code that we were just looking at in Chrome. And I can do pretty much all the same things here. So I have watch. I can, well, there's even some advanced stuff I didn't talk about, which I don't really use very often. Let's see here. So I think the breakpoints work the same way. You just click on the line number, yep, and then click again to turn it off. And here are the controls for the single stepping. The watch. So let's go ahead and just add a watch expression here. So there's all kinds of options. So Firebug's really heavy duty, really good. Okay. So I think it should be clear how to use this. Again, here's my console. Right now I don't have any errors. Let's go back in NetBeans just real quickly and replicate that error again. So this is the original error I showed you, where I deliberately misspelled message text so that the get element by ID failed. Again, I can just go right back into this. I don't want to keep reopening it. I'll just hit reload, and then when I click roll, now this is interesting because it's just not working. So that's one thing that's kind of weird. Sometimes let's see, I went all here. There we go. So this is, for me, I get a little confused about this because the console has all these secondary settings. So I had to hit the all button here. Let's reload this just to see what happens. Okay, no error yet. When I hit the roll, message text enter HTML rolling for point plus sum, message text is null. So that's the same error that we saw before. Again, if I use the console.log, it'll show that here. You can clear the log too, although I don't know that that's particularly useful because you have to reload the page anyway, and that would do the same thing to run it. Okay, I'm not going to show you how to do the single step here. It's the same. Should be able to figure that out. That should give you some tools now to do your debugging. So again, console.alert. You can also use, console.log. You can also use window alert to display variables, values. Sometimes I'll display quite a bit of information. So for instance, when I'm trying to debug a load of data with JSON, I might have it just display all the data so I can see what's going on until I can get it to work. Alright, I hope this was helpful for you, and code on, Dorothy.